Thank you for joining me back here on the last segment of the Chip Shot Football podcast. Just like I did yesterday, a little bit, just talking about the Super Bowl, just trying to incorporate it here a little bit with some of these segments because we are still a good ways away from it, right? I don't want to preview anything just yet, but I thought I'd talk about the rankings on there's a lot of great players in this Super Bowl. There's a lot of star talent everywhere you look on both of these teams, right? From the quarterbacks, from the just skill position players and things like that. So, with there being so many, I thought I'd just rank the top 10 most important players I feel like are going to make the biggest impact on the Super Bowl, in 9 days from now. So, as you can see a couple of them on your screen, but we do got 10 to get through. So, starting at number 10, I think the 10th most important player in the Super Bowl this year is going to be Xavier Worthy. I think it's Xavier Worthy. I believe it's Xavier Worthy because he's grown a lot this year. And I think from what we saw from him at the beginning of the year, a lot of what was being said was a gadget guy, quick, but what else can he actually do, right? Was a lot of the narrative around him, and I think he's really become and matured into a pretty, complete wide receiver. Not to say that he's not going to get tremendously better, right, after his first year, but I feel like he's grown a lot in this offense. It feels like Pat trusts him a lot to target him a lot during the game, and feel comfortable in a bunch of different things, right? Still doing the jet sweeps and maybe some handoffs, some tosses to him and things like that, but making routine plays, moving the chains, being a reliable target, catching, being trustworthy when the pass comes your way. Things like that, I think, I've seen grown in the relationship between Xavier Worthy and Pat. And in the Super Bowl specifically, I don't need him to have like 8 receptions or anything like that, right? But I do need, like this Chiefs team has shown all year, I just need him to fill his role, make 1 or 2 plays that's required of him, and the rest is gonna go like it usually goes with the Chiefs. I don't need the entire game from him. I just need 2 to 3 plays where he does make a deep catch or he does take a sweep for 15, 20 yards or something like that. That's all I really need from him, and I think that speed definitely is a threat anytime he's out there. So I had him in at number 10. And then just moving on a little bit to number 9, I had A.J. Brown. I had A.J. Brown here similar to Xavier Worthy because obviously Philadelphia is a run-heavy team, and they don't, again, like Worthy, they don't need A.J. Brown to have 9 receptions for 100 yards to win this game, but just make the plays when it counts, right? When Jalen has to throw on a 3rd and 7, on a 4th and 4 or something like that, and a lot of people know that it's probably going to you, make the play when you need it to, right? Just a solid 4 receptions, 5 receptions for like 60 yards, 50 yards is really all you need from AJ because, again, this is a run-heavy team. That's who they are. I don't need the Eagles to be doing something that's not been their identity during the biggest game of the year, right? If this is you, show it, try and win that way, and rely on A.J. Brown when the moment comes. Not to say that he's a bum or anything like that, but that's what this team has been, and he could win one-on-one matchups, right? A lot of people would take that matchup over any corner. So making the plays when you need it, being a form of impactful any way that you can has really become the theme of this Super Bowl. So I think that's really what I'm looking for AJ Brown, right, as the number 1 target or the number 1 wide receiver for the Eagles. Then at number 8, pretty similar to the first 2, Trent McDuffie. Trent McDuffie is going to be very important in regards to who I had at number 9, AJ Brown, right? Taking whoever he's on during the game, right? Because I don't think they're just going to limit him to AJ Brown. He's probably going to be on him a lot, but, putting him on Devontae Smith or any other receivers, right? I'm sure the Eagles will move him around. But McDuffie, whoever he does draw the matchup of, try and take them out of the game as much as possible. At least force tight window throws. Because Jalen, I anticipate, isn't going to throw that much. So with them being predominantly a run-heavy team, all these throws become a little bit more important, right? Because you got to have them because you're not going to throw that much. So the value of them increases, right, when the quantity decreases of them. So for Trent, I'm sure he's going to be in one-on-one situations a lot. So making sure that you make it extremely hard for Jalen to even throw your way. Heck, maybe don't even have him look your way if that's the case. And if you draw the matchup of A.J. Brown and you can have Jalen go away from your matchup pretty quickly, that's going to be a huge win for the Chiefs if they're able to shut down one of these receivers and cut down the options a little bit more for Jalen Hurts. So he's going to be super important for that defense in at number 8. Then at number 7, staying on the defensive side of the ball, I got Zach Bond. Zach Bond up there for one of the best free agent acquisitions this offseason, and he really has to watch everything on that defense, right? There's a lot of responsibilities that comes with his position. He's got to watch everything across the middle of the field. He has to set up the defense, getting the call and deploying everybody where they should be. Changing the play potentially or changing the coverage based on what he hears from Patrick. Having that one-on-one quarterback to linebacker sort of chess match is going to be fascinating to watch. Maybe, being a spy on Patrick, also in some situations covering Travis Kelce. There's a lot of things that he's going to have to do, and I feel like a lot of people won't really notice it too much. So I wanted to highlight Zach Bond a little bit because he's truly had one of the best seasons that I don't think a lot of people are talking about too much. So he's going to do a lot of different things and probably going to have to do them at a high level to win this game against the Chiefs. So I had him in a little bit higher at number 7. Then at number 6, I mentioned him a little bit, Travis Kelce. I feel like this could be a matchup where they could exploit the Eagles a little bit because you look last week, Zach Ertz had 11 receptions for 104 yards. Tyler Higbee the week before had 7 receptions for 54 yards and a touchdown. Not to diminish those other guys, but Travis is definitely expected to do or be considered a better tight end than both of those guys. So having that matchup, seeing how the Commanders kind of exploited that matchup a little bit, this could be perfectly set up for Travis to have one of those classic playoff performances alongside Patrick. So he didn't really have a big impact against the Bills. So I think after a game like that, you go into the Super Bowl, you have a huge impact. I think he's in line for one of those classic games because for as good as the Eagles are at covering, right, as good as they are at pass defense, I think that the middle of the field is somewhere where teams could take advantage of because Quinyon and Darius and then the safeties up on over them do a very good job of limiting things down the sidelines and to the boundaries. So I think the middle of the field, especially with not having Nakobe Dean in there anymore, could be huge for them. So I like that for the Chiefs. Then at number 5, I have the guy on your screen, Jalen Carter. He's got to get to Patrick some way, somehow. However many times he could do it, the more the merrier. He's got to get to Patrick, and he's got to alter his picture as much as possible. You got to keep him contained first and foremost, right? You can't have him running all over the place and distorting your defensive game plan. But force the offensive line to bring as many people over to try and block you. It helps everywhere else. It helps all the other matchups along your defensive line. The more attention that's on you, the more you're impacting the game, the more it helps you as a collective. So he's gotta win his matchup, and it's gonna be a good one against Trey Smith, one of the best guards in the NFL. Also, Creed Humphrey, I'm sure, is gonna be in there as well. So you gotta win that matchup, right? There's gotta be a lot of individual matchup victories for whoever's going to win this Super Bowl. So I think Jalen has a big task of pushing the pocket, making Patrick uncomfortable, and just getting him to move around, not just sit there and pick your defense apart. And with that being said, I could say the same exact thing for who I have at number 4, Chris Jones. Chris Jones not only has to get to Jalen Hurts, but also you got to stop the run. You got to stop the run with Saquon. He's going to be right in the middle of it every single play. So The difficult part about this is it's not just beating your guy and trying to get to Saquon, right? You got to be very disciplined, very gap oriented, and he's a very good player, right? Obviously, but him sticking to his responsibilities just as much as the entire defensive line is going to be the name of the game. And as much as he can do that and stop the run, if he could make one play or two, I don't need him to sack Jalen 2 or 3 times, but if he can make one play, a tackle for a loss, maybe one sack that knocks him out of field goal range, or just one play that changes the course of how this game is going, like he did last year when he almost got to Brock Purdy on one of the throws in the red zone that had them settle for 3 points. Something like that, right? The main thing is going to be for him to try and stop Saquon, and then if he can make one other play on top of that, that's all I really need. So I have him in at number 4, and then at number 3, going on to number 1, I'm sure you guys can guess them. At number 3, I have Patrick Mahomes as advertised, right? There's not too much to say of what I need to see from Patrick, right? But obviously, I think some things like getting the ball out quickly, not letting those guys get to you, learning from the Buccaneers Super Bowl, right, on how, running for your life, obviously taking those sacks really destroy the game. So getting the ball out quickly, using your legs as much as possible is going to be huge for them. Again, a lot like he did in the Super Bowl last year. And the biggest thing is no turnovers, right? The Eagles have made a living off of picking off Jordan Love 3 times. Against the Rams, 2 forced fumbles in critical moments. Against the Commanders, 4 other turnovers as well. The Chiefs aren't really known for being so loose with the ball like that. So keeping to that mantra and not turning the ball over is really a lot on Patrick. So he's in at number 3. And then the top 2 are Eagles players. At number 2, I got Jalen Hurts, right? Because he's going to have to make some big-time throws in this game. It's not as simple as just running the ball. It's not going to be the Commanders game where they're going to run it in 7 times, right? He made some good throws in that game. You're going to need to do a lot more of that in this Super Bowl against the Chiefs, who I believe that Steve Spagnuolo and that defense overall is going to have to make them play left-handed, and I think they're just going to live with the results of that. So Jalen is going to be in the spotlight a lot, making throws, converting third downs, and things like that. So that's a huge portion of it, because I believe Saquon in this running game is going to only get them to this point and is going to keep it competitive. But to make the difference, to make the one play, unlike the Bills did in the AFC Championship, you're going to need to do something that's, above what you've done all season. And I think Jalen, if he can make some fantastic throws, be accurate with it, again, no turnovers, that could be the difference, right? Unlike 2 Super Bowls ago, right? When Jalen had that costly fumble, it gets returned for a touchdown, and in a close game, something like that could end up being the difference. So kind of tugging the line from not showing hesitation, right? Double clutching and things like that, but also just not being reckless with it. It's easier said than done, but I think Jalen has a lot of responsibility that way. And then at number 1, it's Saquon. Obviously, he's the most important player in this game, because without him having any sort of impact in this game, the Eagles really have no chance, I think. Jalen, I trust him to make a good amount of throws, maybe more than people expect, but if Saquon's really, held to like 70 yards or something like that, I don't really see a way that the Eagles win, because if that happens, then the Chiefs have taken away your biggest asset, and I don't see the Eagles overcoming that. I don't see any team overcoming that in any Super Bowl. So Saquon has to be the be all end all for this team. He has been all season, and it'll be interesting to see these 2 records, kind of, right? Because the Chiefs have gone 18 straight playoff games without allowing a 100-yard rusher to the opposing team, and Saquon has only gotten over 118 yards each and every game in the playoffs. So something's going to have to give, and I think Saquon holds the key to a lot in the Super Bowl, right? It's everything with him or nothing without him, basically, for the Eagles, right? And the Chiefs obviously know that, and they're going to try and stop him to the best of their abilities. And that's why I have him as the most important player in the Super Bowl. So that brings us to the end of today's show. On the next week's shows, we're going to go more in depth on the Super Bowl, obviously with the game being next Sunday. So for right now, I want to thank you guys all for joining me on today's show. And please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the Chip Shot Football Podcast over on their YouTube channels, especially the GSMC Podcast Network channel and the GSMC Sports Network channel, where you can see more content around this show covering the NFL, more breaking news, discussions, draft news, off-season, transactions and things like that, all being covered on here with me, Manny Maradiaga, as your host every weekday at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So again, I hope you guys have a great weekend. That's the end of today's show, and I'll see you guys all back here again next week on Monday.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that great. I don't wanna go to